Hello, I'm Will Gray, and welcome to Walk the Valley, the podcast that breaks down the barriers to bringing healthcare innovations to the market. Today, I'm joined by Hanna Sjöström, CEO of Neola Medical, a company pioneering neonatal lung monitoring. Hanna built her career in fast-moving consumer goods, holding leadership roles at L'Oréal and Coca-Cola. Her transition from global brands to leading an early-stage medical device company is a testament to the power of adaptable leadership. In this episode, we explore what it takes to step in as an external CEO and drive innovation in a highly specialized, high-stakes field like neonatal care. We discuss the unique challenges of developing and commercializing medical technology, the regulatory hurdles, and how Neola is positioning for success. Finally, Hanna shares valuable lessons for founders, why commercial strategy should never be an afterthought, and the importance of building a leadership team that balances technical, regulatory, and business expertise. Welcome, Hanna. It's a pleasure to have you here today. I'm really looking forward to hearing your insights. Perhaps a great way to start would be a little bit of your own personal journey and how you became the CEO at Neola.
Well, thank you so much for having me here today. My name is Hanna Sjöström. I'm the CEO of Neola Medical, and we have developed the very first medical device for continuous monitoring of the lungs of preterm-born infants with an instant detection of lung complications. So we're on the journey from taking very advanced technology from the University of Lund all the way to patients with a focus on the US market. So it's been a very interesting journey for myself and for the team for the past years. We started out in 2016. I joined the company as the first full-time CEO in January of 2019. And since that, we have together created a medical device for intensive care use, taken the company to the stock exchange with Nasdaq First North Growth Market in 2020, in the middle of the pandemics, and are now initiating our very first clinical study on our intended patient population, preterm-born infants. So I would say that we know a lot about all the challenges and struggles of a young medical device company in intensive care and what it takes to at least try to get to patients. And we've been working with, I would say, a very high energy the past couple of years and are now building up the company also to be more members on this journey. But for my journey, originally, I did not start out immediately in the industry. I was studying in Lund at the university, first an MBA and then technology management. So I went into a special program that was for top students at the engineering school, top students at the financial school where I was at, that joined together in a unique class of 40 students where we worked together. We changed subjects with each other for 1.5 years. So I'm also half engineer. Mm-hmm. And that has led to, I would say, it started out in my really great interest in innovation as such, and especially technology innovation. And that also led me quite from the beginning, from a young age, to really wanted to build business in very advanced technology. So that's always been my interest and passion. So when I graduated from university, I thought that I was going to go into these very large industrial players where I've written my master thesis, but life took me another way. So I got a fantastic offer from L'Oréal to become a product manager for the styling market in Sweden. And that was just one of those kind of offers you can't refuse. So instead, I moved to Stockholm and I started my first job in fast-moving consumer goods. And that was a very exciting job to have, especially as a first job. It was very intense. I had full profit and loss responsibility for the styling brands for L'Oréal on the Swedish market. So that included, for example, Studio Line. And that was the biggest styling brand on the Swedish market at the time. So I had a very large marketing budget. I had responsibility for sales, for marketing, for logistics. So everything connected to having successful, profitable sales on the Swedish market. And I would say that really formed me as a business leader. To take full responsibility from a very young age. I absolutely loved it. It was very intense work. It was like sleeping under my desk to just continue working. It was a very intense environment in terms of L'Oréal. You always have the big managers from France and Paris coming to really interrogate you on your numbers. So I've learned a lot about really knowing your numbers by heart, really understanding the market. So I would say I got a quite tough business education from my first job at L'Oréal. And I did a great career at L'Oréal as well. So I got more and more profitable segments of brands. And I stayed there for 3 years before I was headhunted to the Coca-Cola company.
What would you say were your transferable skills or the knowledge that you learned in that very intense commercializing environment that you take to your job today? Because it's fascinating. It's not I wouldn't say it was a common pathway that you've taken there into the medical device industry. So there must be some really good insights.
What I learned was really to to really understand your numbers and keep them close to heart at all times. So it's a very data-driven company. You are measured on sales every single day. And you need to make sure that the entire system is working. Everything from marketing, if you have a TV campaign on, you need to make sure that you have the right product on shelf during that entire period of time to really make a profitable sale as well. And so I would say the oversight of a very complex full supply chain is something that I really learned from that job. And also a lot of, I would say, drive and push and responsibility. And of course also an understanding of how you drive profitable sales from a very early age.
And I think that's a very common challenge for an early stage medtech company is when they come from a very kind of potentially scientific background or an academic background, then sales can be a really complex journey to navigate. So bringing somebody like yourself into an early stage company to make sure that sales perspective is there right from the beginning is a super clever strategy.
Yes, and I would say also the understanding of the consumer, then in my case today the patient and the doctors and the payers. So really understanding what you need to have in order for this product to be a success in care, to really add value to all the stakeholders on the journey from your device being included in care, recommended, used. All of that is definitely key, and it needs to be incorporated much earlier than I see a lot of startups doing today. So it needs to be incorporated from the very beginning of designing the instrument, because it's related to usability. It's related to who will use the product, in what setting, what costs can we have in the product just to have profitable margins, how will we go through the purchasing system, what does it take. So all of those things to go for the business development of that to go in parallel with the technical development process is super important. And then I would say also one perspective is that I think that some of the young companies might forget about is the importance of building in potential evidence for potential sales claims into the clinical protocol for your studies. Because I know that a lot of the kind of lingo from the industry is, yes, well, we'll just do post-market clinical studies after we got an approval. But you might not have the cash to go that far without the sales claims as well. You might not even come to their first sales without having those claims to support your purchasing process. So it is so much important than I understand that a lot of young companies are. They don't have it on their agenda in the way that they probably should.
Do you think then we could accurately identify this, or from your perspective, this could be the valley of death for startups in this phase, is not accurately identifying that need there? Would you say that?
Yeah, that's definitely one perspective. We've seen a lot of fantastic technology companies within the industry who are really focused on an amazing technology, but not on the perspective of how can this technology really contribute to patient? Can we get enough margin to sell it in the business model that we foresee? Do we need another type of business model? I would say that definitely companies spend too little time on it today. And once those critical subjects are coming to surface, it might be too late to kind of get up from that valley of death. So we definitely add the business development, revenue modeling as key factors to consider when you are in that valley of death. That can be quite a long time as well for medical device companies. We can be in that valley for a couple of years.
How would you see Neola's future business model, and you talked about it's going to have a US, or the company's going to have a US centric kind of market approach. Like, could you give me a tiny bit of background into the thinking about that future? Because you're still you're still reasonably early stage, but you've got this mentality of preparation for the market. Could you give me a little bit of insight into that?
Yeah, so we're in clinical phase. We're aiming for a de novo process with the FDA. It's a confirmed de novo process because we are a brand new technology for lung monitoring, so we have nothing to compare to. So that's also an angle that in some ways makes it more challenging to go through one of those processes. We are focusing on the US market, we say mainly for commercial reasons and not regulatory reasons. Commercial reasons, meaning that we have a patient population in the US with an unusually high number of preterm birth. So in the US, 10.6% of all babies are born preterm, many of them in need of intensive care and continuous lung monitoring from Neola. And that number, for example, in Sweden is only 6%. So from a market opportunity, this is a really big market for us in terms of the number of patients and also the share of patients that are born preterm. So this means that the US, since it's such an important problem for them to solve, they have really invested in neonatal intensive care. And they're focusing a lot on getting more device to children in the US. So with that, we also have a regulatory landscape that for the past couple of years, and we hope that it's going to continue this way, is very much focused on getting new technology in terms of medical device to children. So the FDA has a specific project addressing this. So that means that we get quick response time. We get a lot of focus from the FDA since we are a device developed specifically for children. We have also been very present in the US market, which means that we have been able to gain collaborations with the most prominent universities and institutions and hospitals in the US. So we've been working very intensely with our key opinion leader strategy. And that has resulted in that we have been selected as a Stanford Impact One company. So Stanford has evaluated our technology and our company and said that we have the potential to really impact the care of children from day one we come to hospital. So this has been a very important step for us, and with their support, that has opened a lot of doors for us in the US. It has also led to that we have closer discussions with the FDA, and we have also gained some grants, so federal grants from the FDA and from the federal government in order to support our regulatory plan. So I would say there are many factors that are quite specific to preterm birth is high in the US. We have been able to really benefit from key opinion leaders and from the regulatory focus of the FDA within this segment. And then also in general, avoiding the quite complex regulatory landscape in Europe for now.
This neatly segues to a point which your team and yourself have a very clear strategy for a commercial reason for approaching the US first. Actually, there's a lot of startups that are doing that to avoid the complexity of the European regulatory landscape.
Yes, I agree with that. In my role as chairman of the board for the medtech task force at Sweden Bio, we are in that group coming from a number of both small, large, and mid-sized medtech companies, and really trying to influence to have a better landscape for medical device companies in Europe. It's a very important task at the moment, because we can see that the implications of the implementation of MDR is that more products on the market that have been used efficiently for patients for many, many years has been pulled off the market because it's simply too expensive to recertify them. So that is a problem, especially, I would take the examples of pediatrics that I know really well. For example, Philips have divested all of their neonatal products, which has led to the impact that a lot of the common disposables for neonatal cares are withdrawn from European hospitals. And that is a scenario that we see in many, many different fields. And it's especially impacting vulnerable patients group, the patients group that are not so common, segments that are not seen as profitable enough to carry the very, very high cost of recertification. And then, of course, it impacts children and women overall. So I would say that it's a development that we don't want to see from the industry. We don't want to see it from the company, and from a government level. This should be something that governments all over the EU should be really worried about, because it's really about patients not getting access to products that we know from use are safe. So what's happening in terms of existing products is that certification processes are extremely expensive. So an estimation is that the full process just from consultancy fees is approximately 1 million SEK per product. And that means that you need to have a product that gives you significant revenue per product in order for you to even go through the regulatory process. In addition to that, you have to do clinical studies on the product, and those are also costly, lengthy, maybe not worth the time and effort, because you have, for the companies who have many products in their portfolio. So from that perspective, we will see a lot of withdrawals of products that used to really benefit patients and that we could see no risk to. And then on the other hand, we have the problem that MDR is significantly impacting new medical device coming to market based on new technology in a very negative way. So still, since the implementation of MDR, we have not seen medical device based on new technology entering the EU. So this means that MDR has become a very hard block of innovation in Europe. It's over-regulated, and it's I would say that the intention with MDR was for Europeans to have really safe products on the market. But the actual implementation of MDR has been just a massive over-regulation that is costing lots of costs in the entire healthcare system. It's costing patients to not get access to right medical device. And it's impacting the innovation climate in all of our European countries. So as a CEO for a medtech company, we always need to be very pragmatic of how can we make sure that our product come to patients and how can we survive and be profitable until we can reach that market. Or at least have enough capital in order to reach that market. And for now, that environment in Europe is very, very challenging.
Really interesting. Last question. What's your kind of key piece of advice or takeaway for a pre-commercial medtech company approaching clinical trials or trying to get into the market and navigating the valleys of death?
I would say really make sure that you have a diverse team of also senior expertise within business development, and make sure that you are thinking about the commercial aspects of the business in correlation with the specific regulatory landscape that you're focusing on. So in short, have a leadership team that is consisting of commercially focused people, regulatory focused people, and really a deep technical expertise, and make sure that you work as a tight team to bring all of these different perspectives together, aiming for a profitable business with really amazing sales claims that you can get all the way. And don't forget that the US is a highly commercial market. So you need to also, if you're getting into the US market, take on a new set of glasses and think business in everything you do.
Wow, Hanna, it's absolute pleasure to hear your insights today, and we wish you the very best in commercializing and navigating through clinical trials and into the US market.
Thank you so much for having me.
So that's a wrap for this episode of Walk the Valley. Talking with Hanna gave us a deep dive into the realities of leading a medtech company through the complexities of commercialization and the regulatory hurdles. Biggest takeaways? Success in medtech isn't just about having groundbreaking technology, it's about understanding the market, aligning commercial strategy with regulatory realities, and building a team that can execute. If you found this episode insightful, don't forget to subscribe and leave a review. It helps us bring more real-world lessons to innovators like yourselves. And remember, you can now listen to Walk the Valley on Apple Podcasts and on Spotify. Thanks for tuning in, and until next time, keep walking the valley.